You know, we also found out while we did ask questions in terms of what's the required procedure back home here if you're carrying out this kind of function. And then we were told that the required standard and what is also applicable here is that the arresting officer, again in this case the DSS, when they go for this kind of operations, they're also supposed to, number one, submit themselves to the person that they're going to arrest. They're not God. To also show that I'm not here to plant any incriminating evidence in this house, because they're also required to search the house. That's why they've got a warrant. But that's what the body camera, as you highlighted, should also highlight, that yes, we submitted ourselves to search. They searched us. We don't have any incriminating evidence, such that whatever we found in your house is the kind of evidence that we'll have to proceed with in court. Those are the kind of issues that we should be looking at for, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, but let's be very careful about this. It's very easy for us to dictate what the law says, but we have to be very careful what the police officer or the DSS officer experience in the front line of action is totally different. It is a dangerous zone. With all due respect to the legal minds that have been talking about this, in the front line, many of them may probably have a heart attack when they hear the sounds of gunshot. So when these DSS men go to the front line, everything may not work out step by step as you plan. However, that is where they have their contingency plan. This is where you have your risk assessments. This is where you have your preparation and have the right equipment to be able to go there and deliver and have plan A, plan B if something goes wrong. However, when you are going to do a sting operation on the territories of a known terrorist or a drug cartel, trust me, you're not going to have the privilege to start to say, I present myself to you, you're going to get shot down, they're going to kill you. So what are you going to do? You have to bring the element of surprise, you're going to bring the element of noise, use noise to destabilize them, you're going to use any kind of skills in the book to intimidate them to get access. You're not going to be telling a drug pusher, I'm from the DSS, you've got the right to remain silent, and you say that she can be used against you in a law court. You have to go in to do that.
However, I get that part, Vince.
We call it appropriate force.
I completely get that part.
A member of the public, like a justice.
Yeah, but don't also forget that if you're going for that kind of operation, it's also completely different. You're going there to catch them in the act. And so you're placing them, in fact, they're almost simultaneously with the evidence in question here, and they still will be required to have those maybe body cameras, depending on nomenclature and how you call it. But we're also told here that if you're going for this kind of operation, which in this particular case, it's also different. But while they let us understand the procedures and what they should carry out, then they took us back to the members of the public who had questions. Remember, the DSS some time ago also went to Akwa Ibom State Government House, and they told the public that they found stash of dollars. The public never saw that. So there will always be questions concerning, look, how are we sure that what you say you saw, you actually saw?
Oh, fantastic. Obviously, what we're having here is a service that probably needs loads of support with training, with operation tactics, with communication, and with assuring the public about what they're saying is true. Because you're right about the issue about the way that the government house, and we never saw anything up to date. Remember, in sting operation, as I said before, there's a lot of deceit involved. When you expose yourself for the public to start asking you questions, are you sure you're being honest? Are you sure you did not plant all these monies in there? Are you sure you're not making false allegations? You're not making yourself to look good in the eyes of the people. And remember, these are the people, the taxpayers, pay for your services. So each time you go for a sting operation and you did not deliver, money has been wasted. So who is going to pay us that money back? We are the public that pay the tax to give you that money to work. It's not your personal money. You are supposed to be our servant. So obviously, those points about the allegations are so correct. But let me tell you something very important, because Nigeria is so unique. And I know we've got a lot of smart people in Nigeria. When we talk about the body cameras, we have to be very careful to avoid tomorrow somebody will go and buy a camcorder off the shelf and say they're going to video an operation. If you want to follow the right procedures, each body camera has a serial number. And even the USB, the memory card inside it, has a serial number that match the software and the hardware to that particular device. And number two, nobody, the carriers or the operators of the body camera are totally different from the reviewers of the recordings of the body camera. They're not supposed to know each other. To avoid corrupt officers abuse their powers to try to edit the content of a body camera recording. So we have to make sure that they get the right thing. And Chamberlain, I can tell you this, I'm not going to charge them a cent. I'm not going to charge them a kobo. We can give them free services just to make them to get the right concept,
let me
so
comment
they can
here.
look better in the eyes of the public.
Let me comment here.
Too many
Vince,
negatives around what they've done.
You know, if you look at all of what we've highlighted and what you've tried to define for us, does this look like a sting operation, going by the definition?
No, not at all. How can you call this a sting operation? The target involved are reputable members of the public. They are not above the law. The environment involved is a very peaceful environment. Not even one gunshot was fired because you've done your surveillance. You know who is the private security they have employed. You know he's got a wife and maybe 4 children, just maybes. You know he's got a cousin in the house. So you got like less than 10 people in the property. You know they're not armed. You've done your investigation. So what is the sting about this? Let's not try to use big names. You just conducted a raid. You went to arrest somebody. Use simple grammar. Don't try to use complex grammar that implicates what you're intending to do, because the element of deceit in sting operation makes you how are you trying to trick us? Are you trying to use propaganda to lie against us? I think it comes down to the issue of training and retraining and making sure they have the best equipment and manpower to do this. And very important, communication is very correct. They're not doing very well with their communications right now.
And again, perhaps the individuals involved, definitely, you must also have your rights. If this is not a sting operation and it is a raid, going by the definition, what rights do you have if maybe a police officer raids your home?
Now, the police officer, let's get this right. The police officer, the DSS, has got the powers and the right as law enforcement agents to raid. They have the powers to arrest you. Obviously, if they have to come to your house, they need to have a search warrant. But if they have to stop you on the street, they don't need to have a search warrant. By the making of their badge, by the making of their uniform, their authority, they've got power to arrest, and they've got the powers to de-arrest you if they feel it could be resolved. So obviously we have to get this right, that nobody is above the law. Even the police officers themselves, when they get engaged in corruption or misconduct or abuse of their authority, they are not above arrest. They are not above the law. Even the army generals, I saw what a gentleman said yesterday about, you're talking about the judges or the justices. What about the army generals? What about the police IGs? The truth about our country, we believe we are on the right path to cleanse up the system, but we don't have to make anybody to look special, that you are holy and others are unholy. We have to touch everybody to show them we are all not above the law.
In all of this,
I want to quickly look at the statement of the DSS again, because it would seem that what we're saying is that the operations that were carried out, the raids that were carried out, were supposed to be sting operations. Was that the meaning that you're imputing into this?
When you look at sting operations, obviously we have to look at elements. So we use eliminating methods to look at, is there a sting operation? They can argue.
Now, the reason I say this is because they talked about they've been monitoring the expensive and luxurious lifestyle of some of the judges, as well as complaints from concerned public over judgments obtained fraudulently and on the basis of amounts of money paid, adding that the judges were invited, upon which due diligence was exhibited and their premises searched. Now, that definitely, did they categorize that as a sting operation?
Obviously, I'm very good in dissecting gaps in the system. There is a gap in that communication. All right, they were invited, and there was a big jump that now due diligence was exhibited. There was no correspondence if they accepted the invitation or if they honored the invitation. That gap is missing, and people that are very smart in policing just say that gap brings a lot of question marks in what you're telling us that you're doing.